Yeah, and for our conversation today, we're pleased to welcome Elmer Ligid from World Vision Canada and Stanlake Kaziboni from World Vision Sri Lanka. Abdal and I are going to lead the discussion. We're going to learn more about the project and how it reduced barriers for women and girls and how firewood and freedom are connected. Let's dive in. Stanlake, I want to thank you for joining us and congratulations to both World Vision Canada and Sri Lanka on winning this award. I know it's evening in Sri Lanka, so we're grateful that you've made the time to join. I wonder, could you tell us a bit more about Sri Lanka and maybe give us an overview of the project and the community you work with?
Sure, Grace. Happy to. Good evening, everyone. Good afternoon and good morning. My name is Stan Kaziboni. I work for World Vision Lanka. So I'm currently based here in Sri Lanka. It's a small island nation in the beautiful Indian Ocean, located just south of India. It has a population of around 22 million people. It's a country known for its rich cultural heritage, diverse landscapes, and strong agricultural traditions. I think many of you might have heard of Ceylon tea. This is where Ceylon tea is grown, cultivated every year. So this initiative, it's titled Gender-Transformative Approach for Health, Food Security, and Climate Resilience, focusing on strengthening the role of women and girls in leading climate resilient and sustainable practices. The ultimate outcome of this project was to enhance the agency of women and girls to lead approaches that improve climate resilience, food security, and also health outcomes. To achieve this, the project advanced two closely intermediate outcomes. The first one was focusing on improving the adoption of gender-transformative climate resilient practices, including an innovative, improved cookstoves and the establishment of sustainable women-led home and community gardens. Second intermediate outcome was increasing equitable participation of women, girls, men, and boys in initiatives related to climate resilience, food security, health, ensuring that communities work collectively towards sustainable solutions. This project was implemented over a year. It started in March 2024 and ran up until February 2025 and focused on the communities in what we term as the hill country of Sri Lanka, where many families rely on firewood for cooking and also heating water. This area of Sri Lanka has it's high altitude, so it has quite cool weather patterns, right? And face challenges related to livelihoods, nutrition, and environmental sustainability. We chose this location for this project because these communities are mostly what we term as estate communities. There's a long history behind these communities. They face numerous discriminations, and many of them work in the tea plantation sector. Many of them are naturally women or for what we term as Tamil descendants. So they face local discrimination, structural discrimination, and also national discrimination. And that was a perfect location for us to trial run this project. Thank you.
So this project brought together nutrition, food security, climate resilience, and women leadership. So Elmer, on the ground, how do these connect in daily life for families?
Thank you very much, Abdal. So I'm Elmer Ligid from World Vision Canada. I'm the Director of Global Partnerships and Business Development. So going back to your question, Abdal, so the intersectionality of climate, food security, and nutrition is not just a theoretical framework. So they are felt and experienced by the communities in Sri Lanka every day, especially women and girls. Let's unpack that a little bit. So Sri Lanka is one of the countries heavily affected by climate shocks. And as we know, the climate shocks affect food production. So when food production is affected, it immediately impacts nutrition. So this is especially concerning in Sri Lanka, where about 35% of women of reproductive age experience anemia, and child stunting is quite high at about 17%. So now, when nutrition is poor, it affects people's health and productivity, making households even more vulnerable to climate shocks. And women and girls sit right at the center of all of this. Why? Women and girls carry much of the daily household burden, from cooking, food preparation, collecting of firewood, and caring for family members. So that's why we approach these issues all together. We supported home and community gardens to increase access to food. We taught women and girls on how to cook more nutritious food, introduced the improved cook stoves to reduce firewood use and smoke emission, and ensure and really made space and opportunities for women and girls to take on leadership roles in addressing these issues. And we saw real change. And so on the ground, the connection is quite simple and it's quite practical. So when women have the tools and the space to lead, we have seen that families could manage food, energy, and resources more sustainably.
Great, thank you. And, let's talk about that. Let's talk about that sort of a key component of the project, which was the cook stove innovation. Elmer, just back to you again. Can you walk us through what the improved cook stove actually looks like and how it works? And really, what made this technology the right fit for the tea estate communities you worked in?
So the improved cook stoves was developed by and patented by our partner organization called Tramontana Asset Management Limited, based in the United Kingdom. So it is actually a cool stove. You can see it in the photo there. It is made of ceramic and iron, and it has a sort of a GPS attached to it so that it can be monitored. They could monitor the exact location of the stove and also determine carbon emission reduction. So the stove replaces traditional low efficiency stoves that people normally use in the villages that produce high levels of indoor smoke. So this one produce very little smoke indoor emission. So in practical terms, the cookstoves made significant impact in the lives of communities, especially women and girls, in very, very significant ways. First, the improved cookstoves reduced firewood consumption by 56%, meaning families require far less fuel for daily cooking. So in Bogawantalawa, where the project is located, it is in cooler part of Sri Lanka, and households there use about 13 kilograms of firewood daily, not just for cooking, but also for taking a bath. So it's higher than the national average because they also use it for taking a bath because of the cold temperature, especially in the morning and in the evening. And now when we introduced the improved cook stoves, the only that has been reduced from 13 kg to about now 5.6 kilogram daily. Second, the stoves also reduced cooking time. It's making meal preparation faster and less labor intensive. And the third, which is for me is the most significant impact of this project, is that because it reduced the use of firewood by more than 50%, it significantly reduced the number of trips women and girls make to collect firewood from the forest. They normally collect every day, but now they only go to the forest twice a week, reducing both the physical burden and safety risks of women and girls. It's very, very important. I just want to emphasize here that during our interviews with women and girls, almost all girls interviewed reported animal attacks and experienced physical injuries during these trips, and more than one-third of them experienced some forms of physical and psychological abuse from other members of the community. So it was very, really risky for women and girls there to go to the forest on a daily basis. So together, these changes freed up time for women and girls, allowing more time for education, especially for girls, rest, mental health, family life, and more importantly also is the participation of women in community activities and leadership, because in the past they don't have really time to go there. They just they're mostly stay at home, take care of the family and cook, but now they have more time to participate in those leadership. So as one of the participants shared, Melanie, she said that it only takes a little wood to light the stove, and she said that it's even better than gas stove, and she has now more time that she could spend to with her family, and helping her kids and tutoring them in their education and in their assignments.
Elmer, I just wanted to say that, that really answered the question of how this address women freedom, right? The title of our session today is From Firewood to Freedom. And I just want to thank you for explaining that a bit more in detail. And I'll just pass it over to Abdel.
Yeah. So one of the needs that came up was around food security. With the project focusing on and increasing the number of home gardens. So Stanley, can you please tell me more about that? Why was it so important? Were there any challenges in creating home gardens for women in this community?
Thank you. So Elma touched a bit on the food security situation in these communities, and I recall one of the slides indicated that there's high malnutrition in these communities. So one of the critical things about these communities, they rely on daily wage, right? So when daily wage opportunities diminish, it also means diverse and nutritious food also get affected. So many of these target groups struggle to attain food and nutrition security for themselves. So what we wanted to do is to alleviate that situation by introducing something which is low input, but also high returns. And gardens have demonstrated time and time again that it provides households an opportunity to ensure food security. So we did this by working with the target groups to, one, identify pieces of land that they could utilize. One of the biggest challenges that we encountered in estate communities, it's many of the families that reside in these communities do not have access to land. Land is exclusively owned by the estates. So what we had to do was to negotiate with the community and the estate to allocate small pieces of land to be utilized, to be set aside for gardening. One, two, many of these individuals had never actually gardened in their entire lives, even though they work in a TE state. So it was also putting them into trainings and also providing inputs so that they could grow the necessary vegetables and other products from those gardens that they could consume. We also realized that by doing so, already women were struggling in collecting firewood, and they were also struggling with looking for food, since a vast majority of these households are women-led. So it was important for us, one, to solve the issue that women are responsible for, and also ease up their time and also empower them so that they can look after their households in a proper way. So what we did is we provided them with agricultural inputs, vegetables, seeds, also small tools so that they can look after their gardens, and also provide quite a lot of training. We also identified champions in these communities. We also distributed some fruits, seedlings, and small trees so that they could also get fruits from these. And for some that were pretty successful, this became also a source of income. They also sold excess to neighbors and other people that were interested or who were not part of the project. So it also was another income revenue source for these women. In addition to that, what we also noticed is it sort of empowered them to understand how the climate issue is at the core of everything that they do. On one hand, they were collecting firewood. There was now less emissions. On the other hand, they were also looking after the environment by growing trees and also looking after their vegetable gardens, etc. So in a way, that encouraged the entire community in those locations to move out of their comfort zone and also look after the gardens. So they had extra things that they would do apart from there's a high alcohol abuse in these communities. So after work, instead of going and drinking on weekends, now many people that were targeted by the project started investing more time in looking after their gardens because they saw this as a way, one, to relax, two, to earn an income, three, also as a critical source of food nutrition, which brought many, many people together in these communities. So it went way, way above our expectations. Right? Thank you.
Really interesting to hear some of the ripple effects of even one component of the project with the gardens. Another, component of your project, as I learned about it, was that before the project started, women had, zero leadership positions in community forums. And one of the interesting project results is that women's participation in community forums increased from 0 to 69%. So, Stan, I wonder if you can take us through some of the steps that made such a dramatic shift possible in just 12 months and what the importance is of those reduced barriers.
Right from the outset, the most important thing was to work with women in these communities because they had very limited opportunities to participate in decision-making processes. None of the women held leadership roles in local forums. There are multiple local forums in these communities. This is largely due to social norms, limited confidence to speak in public spaces, or just women that have been victims of a lot of abuse. So they lack the agency. And this is something that we worked on in a very strategic way. One was to adopt a very gender transformative approach. We did not only look at skills and resources, but also looked at shifting attitudes and reducing structural barriers to women participation. One of the first steps was creating a space for dialogue and supportive spaces for women to build their confidence. So before we brought everyone together, one of the critical things that we needed to do was to create safe spaces for women and also bring women together so that they have social capital among themselves to be quite supportive. Through targeted training and group discussions, women were encouraged to share experiences and also develop their knowledge around the issues that the project was addressing. This ranged from climate resilience, food security, health, and also just the ability for them to speak and advocate for their communities. One of the critical things that these women were brought into was into a group which is known as Savings for Transformation. This is a platform where women would meet on a monthly basis as well to reinforce that whole culture of learning, that whole culture of expressing yourself, and also increasing the level of confidence that they had. That was on one hand. On the other hand, what we also did was work with men and boys in these communities and community leaders to also raise awareness about the importance of women's participation in decision-making process. These dialogues helped change traditional perceptions and also around traditional perceptions around gender roles and encourage broader community support for women taking on more active roles. I think if you look at these communities, the vast majority, plus 60 to 70% of the population, adults, are actually female. So there is a strong argument that women have to hold more roles of leadership because many of the things that are decided in these communities directly impact women. Women were then supported to participate in these community forums. We always backstopped, observed, and understood if any women were facing challenges. And they could start contributing a lot more perspective related to the project objectives, what Elmer spoke to, improved cookstoves, because we monitored these on a monthly basis. Home gardens, there were champions, women champions that were identified. They were helping each other. Also, just around general household well-being. Over time, we could see that transformation because constant engagement helped build trust and also demonstrate the value of women in leadership. There was a direct relationship between what the communities were seeing as outcomes and how women were transforming this by improved gardening and also the vegetables that were generated and incomes. and also from the incomes from savings for transformation, we could see a shift in the attitudes that men and boys were starting to express towards women. So within just 12 months, these combined efforts led to a significant shift with women stepping into leadership roles within these community forums. I believe we were able to reduce barriers that it was very critical. So decision-making has improved, women agency has improved, and also we're very happy to see men and boys' attitudes and behaviors towards women also evolve more progressively over time. There's still a lot of work to do. It's 1 year, but we made significant inroads in addressing these deep-rooted challenges that have existed for quite a long time. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Elmer, can you share more about why engaging men and boys around this program was so important? How does it help shift household dynamics in favor of women's participation and leadership?
So, Bogawantalawa is a patriarchal society where traditional gender norms are heavily entrenched. And so, engaging men and boys is a very critical aspect of the project because, in most cases, they are the barriers. They're the barriers to women's participation, not only in community activities and decision-making process, but also just within the household. Women do not normally have voice in decision-making process, and they don't normally have access to resources. So, but they are the ones who were responsible for cooking, for collecting firewood, most of the unpaid care work, which left little time for them to engage in community activities. And they are also the ones who eat last at the dining table. You know, it's always the father, the son, and then the mother, and then the girl normally eat last in this community. So we work directly with men and boys through community discussions, life skills, awareness sessions about shared responsibilities, about the role of women and girls in climate resilience, and the benefits of women's participation in decision-making processes, not only just inside the household, but also in the communities. And we made it as practical as could be. And so as men saw the practical benefits, such as less time collecting firewood, lower fuel cost, and improve access to food from home gardens, they became more supportive. So men and boys began sharing tasks at home, supporting women and girls to participate in community forums and training sessions. And they themselves also joined these forums and learned from the conversation, from the discussion. So the shift created space for women to participate and lead. And as a result, as I mentioned earlier, leadership in community forums increased from 0 to 69%. But also, I would like to emphasize that the perceptions of women being included in not only in household but community decision-making process has increased from 39% when we started the project to about 98% when the project ended about after 12 months. So it showed that when men and boys are engaged as partners, change inside the household can happen much faster and create a ripple effect as well in the community.
Those are some really incredible results. Thank you for sharing about that. Maybe we could go back to the Savings for Transformation groups that were mentioned. Stan, I know that was another outgrowth of this project. Could you share a little bit more about how the financial literacy and savings component connect to some of these broader goals you've mentioned around women's leadership and community participation?
Happy to. So Savings for Transformation model is a model that World Vision has been implementing for more than 2 decades. It's a proven model, very successful. So Savings for Transformation groups became an important extension of the project because of its empowerment component. What I mean is it was closely linked to women's confidence, leadership, and also ability to participate in community decision making. These groups usually have between 20 and 30 members. This project, all the beneficiaries, the women that we targeted, were members of these groups. So in each group, there's a committee. So already a chairperson, a secretary, a treasurer, etc. So you already have a simple structure at community level that mimics what happens at national level. So the decision-making process, you have a lot of accountability, transparency elements built into it. Then they meet on a regular basis. So there's a formal structure which encourages discipline. Then there's also a financial literacy component to it, where women are tracking how they're building savings, right? So this platform was quite interesting in these communities because we had not tried it with the most vulnerable persons in Sri Lanka. The uptake was quite great. In many of the targeted communities, as I alluded to much earlier, women have limited access to formal financial services. Many of these hardly ever leave those estates, and few have opportunities to manage or control financial resources. Many of them are always in debt. So Savings for Transformation groups created a safe and supportive space where women could come together on a regular basis to save small amounts of money. Even though they might appear small to us, they were actually quite large for those communities. They were also able to access loans and build their financial literacy, right? So these are small micro loans where they lend to each other or a non-member who can be trusted or vouched for by members. Through these groups, women learn practical skills such as budgeting, record keeping, and financial planning. So World Vision provided that training, and in turn, we would observe how they were performing. This not only helped strengthen household financial resilience, but also increased women's confidence in managing resources and also making financial decisions within their families. Beyond the financial benefits, these groups also served as an important platform for social support and collective learning. So everything that we were doing around cookstoves, gardening was also built and reinforced with the savings groups. So the regular meetings created opportunities for women to discuss other community challenges and also share experiences. It's always a beautiful thing when you group 20 to 30 women together. You realize they can share challenges and also share experiences. That also strengthens the social fabric of those communities by building stronger networks with one another. These interactions strengthened women's voices and encouraged greater participation in community forums and local initiatives. So in a way, these groups were sort of areas where women could plot on how they would go and challenge, what strategies they would employ at community forums and local initiatives. In many communities, what you realize is when women attend certain events, and there's only maybe a few guys, the few guys tend to dominate the conversation and all women become submissive. But these S4T groups, Savings for Transformation groups, was a practice, a dry run for many of these women. Now they knew what tactics to employ for them to also have a greater say in these community forums and local initiatives. So in this way, the savings groups contributed directly to the broader goals of the project. So by increasing women's financial confidence, their literacy, strengthening peer support networks, they helped remove barriers that often prevent women from stepping into leadership roles or participating more actively in decision making. Over time, what we also observed, this collective empowerment has played an important role in enabling women to contribute more confidently to discussions and around climate resilience, food security, and general community well-being. What we observed in 2024 and what we observed in 2025 was a complete transformation. These women were now more confident, more self-assured, and were more capable in standing their ground. which is a true testament to what this project model can do in a short space of time. Thank you.
I would like to add a little bit about this. When I went to Sri Lanka a few years ago and participated in one of the Savings for Transformation meetings, what I found interesting is what happens before and after their business meeting, because they have a very structured business meeting during the time. So I found it, as I mentioned, is a space for women to really a space for them to socialize. And this is where they normally dress up, use their finest garments, they put on makeup, use jewelry and all that. And there's a lot of gossiping, talking about the latest movies in Bollywood, sharing experiences, and that's where they have also space for them to just build networks and really share experiences, not just about the savings, but about what's happening around them in the community. So it's a very interesting platform for women to learn, to build their confidence, to build the networks, and really just share knowledge and bond together as group in that community.
Yeah, thank you, Elmer and Stanlake, for sharing that about saving transformation groups. Back to you, Elmer. I understand that a partnership with an asset management company helped drive the carbon reduction component. How did that relationship work, and what does it say about the new models of financing gender and climate work?
So the partnership with Tramontana Asset Management is really an important piece of this project. So as I mentioned, Tramontana developed and provided the improved Cookstoves technology and supported us on the technical side, including training, monitoring tools, and systems to track the usage and emission reduction. So through this, we were able to reduce the use of firewood and, of course, the time of girls and women, in collecting firewood. But what's more interesting is about how this partnership also reflect a new way of financing development programming. So, as you know, the amount that this is an innovation funding from MCIC. It's a small amount of money, but it served as a catalytic funding mechanism. So, where we were able to attract leverages and attract other resources so that we can create a meaningful impact on the lives of women and girls and the communities in Bogawantalawa. So we call it a strategic layering of resources, where we use the MCIC grant as a leverage, attract additional resources, basically the stoves from Tramontana, and use that as an important element in addressing one of the main issues of the community face. But also, we layered it into our existing programming and assets in that area. We have area development programs where we have some programs already existing, and those activities related to this project were aligned. We're aligned together and ensure that we were able to maximize the resources and the delivery of the different activities. And at the same time, we also attract community resources. So basically, the Savings for Transformation groups, those funds actually came from the community. We do not provide, while we provide loans, in the end, this is their funds, because they also pay that back, and at the same time, they mobilize resources from other sources as well. So by layering these resources together, the relatively modest amount was able to unlock much larger resources from a private partner, from the community, and from our existing program. And it created a much larger impact across climate resilience, food security, and women leadership. Because if we would only rely for the grant, we would not be able to make this impact. So it's a very creative and innovative way of how you blend different resources to create impact. And timing is very important as well. It was just we were just having this engagement with Tramontana about the piloting of stoves in Sri Lanka, where we find where when we were designing this project, and then realized, oh, this will really fit perfectly as one of the solutions to the project that we were designing. And then we have to that, and in that area we have also an existing program and very active community participants are able to also contribute to the project. So this strategic this innovative strategic layering of resources is, for me, is a new way of financing development.
Interesting to hear about some of the partnerships and how that all, as you say, leveraged into bigger action you could take. I wonder, just getting back to the project a little bit, I'm curious, what steps your team took to ensure women and the communities felt ownership over the project. I know there was working committee involvement in the beneficiary selection, and there were volunteer-led garden monitors. Stan, maybe you can take us through that a little bit, how women took ownership over the project.
So I think I mentioned some of the elements already. So excuse me if I'm repeating myself. So right from the outset, I think there was a strong sense of community ownership over the project in the design process, in the mobilization process. We worked through women volunteers in those communities. So we didn't want to impose. We really wanted to ensure that this was as organic as it could be. So through engaging community members in the design, decision making, and also the monitoring of the project. So we looked at all of those aspects. This is an area where World Vision has a long-standing project. So we're quite the community is quite familiar with our approach, and the community is also quite familiar with what World Vision is all about. And we have mobilized within those communities. So we already have some volunteers. So one of the important steps was establishing and working closely with community working group committees. These committees included local leaders, estate leaders, as well as women representatives. And they played an active role in identifying community priorities and also supporting transparent beneficiary selection. It was a very exhaustive process to identify the beneficiaries because they had to fulfill a certain requirement. So we tried to be as transparent as possible, made certain that we had a complaints and response mechanism in place to ensure that everyone was satisfied with this beneficiary selection process. So that for the cook stove and also for the gardening, when you do these things in a transparent and participatory process, it helps to build trust. And it also ensures that support reaches the households that need this support the most. Right? So the appropriateness and relevance is also assured. I think the image that you see on this slide demonstrates that there was a high level of transparency. All our beneficiaries for this project were women. For the first time, we didn't hear any complaints from men. Why are you giving women only? So that was a plus in a way, but we didn't want to reinforce gender stereotype in community ownership. But we did raise awareness among the men in these communities as to why we were donating these to women, and also encourage the men to also support, especially married women, so that they would be supported with household chores, etc. So the project also had a strong emphasis on encouraging participation in community structures. I think I've emphasized on this. Right from the outset, we were quite deliberate in identifying women we felt or women who demonstrated leadership skills. There are those women that are go-getters. You can pick them out during the first conversations, because what we wanted to do was to project confidence. If you give women that already have leadership qualities, then the other women would emulate those or copy the other women. So that was also a strategy that we employed, right? Then these women were able to share their perspectives, and gradually more and more other women started seeing how it was possible. So even in the first quarter, we were already trying to get women into positions of leadership, the very first quarter of the year of the project, so that there was enough lead time for them to have demonstrated leadership qualities by the end of the project. Another key component was the volunteer-led monitoring of home gardens. We had lead, I would call them farmers as such, but lead gardeners, right? Women who were with green fingers. We promoted them, we rewarded them, sort of incentivized so that they could help the ones that were lagging behind. Many of them ended up training other women, providing guidance, and also shared knowledge and regularly checked other households to support the progress of these gardens. This peer-to-peer approach helped strengthen accountability, but also fostering collaboration and learning among community members. We didn't want to bring in external people to come and train, because we realized one of these things, if you do that, one, language is an issue in this community. They have a very unique language compared to the rest of the population that is outside those communities. And also by bringing in outsiders, that also introduces another different dynamic. So we wanted to embed knowledge within these communities and also assure that the people that would be sharing this knowledge and experience will remain past the project life. And also by involving women and community members at each stage, from planning to beneficiary selection and implementation, we were also able to build a strong sense of collective responsibility, right? If you recall the Savings for Transformation, all the women were members. So by virtue of being members, they would hold each other accountable. So there's a part of our social capital, which sometimes is peer pressure, subtle peer pressure. This approach not only improved the sustainability of activities, but also empowered women to take greater leadership roles within these communities. And we are confident that this is continuing beyond the life of the current project. Okay, thank you.
It's so interesting. It really sounds like there was a lot of momentum that was built, whether it was women in leadership, gardens growing, involvement in forums. I'm just curious, to sort of wrap up the conversation here, what are you, either of you, Elmer or Stan, what are you most excited about for these communities? How do you see this work continuing to grow? Maybe I'll throw it to you first, Elmer, if you had something you wanted to say.
Three things come to mind. One is I'm really excited that we have some sort of a proof of concept on how this strategic, innovative way of financing development would work. We want to scale that, and replicate that in our other programs, where how you could use a grant as an anchor, use that to leverage and attract additional resources from the private sector, from the community, as well as from the INGOs themselves. How we can use that strategically to create more impact. And I think that's the future. The future for me is really blended financing. Second is also about, there are conversations about scaling up the stove distribution in Sri Lanka. Maybe Stan could speak more to that, but this is more in the area of how the adoption of stove for this project was a pilot test on how we could reduce carbon emissions. But for you to really create an impact, it has to be in volumes. So you have to look at like 100,000, 500,000 stove distribution, because one stove in a year could reduce carbon emission by between 1 to 3 tons. And if you convert that in monetary terms, that will result into about 1 metric ton of carbon reduction. If you're going to sell carbon credit, is about $15 to $20 per ton. So if you are going to have a massive stoves there distribution, carbon credit could significantly generate revenues for the communities themselves. The third is how this project will help inform our approach in terms of increasing women's agency. So Of course, we want to continue strengthening women's leadership in climate resilience. Women are already leading efforts around sustainable food production, natural resource management, and household energy practices. The next step is how to deepen that leadership, ensuring women are shaping community priorities, like more more roles for them to play in the community's shaping, not just participating but shaping those priorities, influencing the systems, local systems, and driving solutions that improve both livelihood and environmental sustainability. Stan?
Thank you. Just to echo some of the points that have already been discussed by Elmer. I think that for me, the confidence and leadership of women within these community forums is exciting. We would like to see how they continue to perform and how that could be sustained. Continued expansion and sustainability of home gardens. We have so many estates in Sri Lanka, so that's an area of growth, an area of opportunity, and improving household nutrition and food security. Stronger community collaboration with women and men and youth working together on climate resilience, health, and general food systems is also an area that's exciting. We continue to see the role of savings for transformation groups in strengthening financial resilience and also supporting women's economic participation. Beyond the project, we see this as a definite game changer. The potential of knowledge sharing within and between communities, allowing for successful practices such as home gardening and improved cooking solutions. Elma spoke to this, to spread organically. We're looking at bringing in more cookstoves and see if we can really scale this out. Community ownership is always one of those critical things. By training volunteers, active forums, and local committees, how can we continue to support this? The long-term ripple effects. These communities are 200 plus year old. We hope this project would give these communities an opportunity to break the cycle of poverty, also break the cycle of gender inequality, and also be a ladder for transformation in these communities, a way out of poverty. At national level, to inform and influence policy, and also shift in attitudes and perceptions. These communities, as I mentioned earlier on, many of them are looked down upon. We just hope that such projects would change the way the national perception about these communities is expressed. They are capable. So that's the communication we wanted to reiterate. They're capable. If given an opportunity, they will succeed like the rest of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It's been such an interesting conversation. I think we're just going to move now to taking some questions. The first question here is, do you think it might be possible for these types of stoves to be manufactured locally, both in Sri Lanka or in other communities facing similar challenges? If you know the answer, just feel free to jump in, Elmer or Stan.
I'll start. Stan, please also provide your insights. But yeah, I asked that question to Tramontana about this how we can produce that locally, and it's in the works. They are working in that they're exploring how they could transfer the technology specifically for women, like women as the producers of the stoves, as well as part of their revenue generation. So that's part of the conversation. They're looking into that, and our vision is eventually women will be able to produce them themselves, with technical support from them, and at the same time being able as well to repair the stove so that it has to be locally led rather than just being so dependent externally.
Yeah, I hear that. Repair is a serious component to consider. Okay, so the next question I have is, have you seen a reduction in respiratory illness among women due to the use of improved cook stoves? Maybe I'll pass to you, Stan.
I think literature does suggest from our own monitoring data, from the initial feedback that we received from the project participants, they indicated or suggested or inferred that they were breathing much better, and also children in the household were coughing less. So as a proxy, yes, that was clear that breathing or respiratory diseases actually diminished over the year. We didn't have a medical sort of monitoring exercise to be able to demonstrate that. But through proxy, yes, definitely there is evidence that there was a decline in respiratory diseases.
Thank you. Stan, you mentioned the ripple effects of the project, and certainly they sound like they've been really profound in the community. I just wonder if you have either of you a closing thought about the effects that you may see when women and girls have more bandwidth. Does it affect their education, their economic activity, their community involvement? You spoke of Milani, who described the Cookstoves as freeing up time for her family. So I was wondering if either of you had a comment on those ripple effects among women and girls in the community.
Yeah, happy to. I think the more we work with these communities, the more we work with women and girls, the more their time is freed up. You start realizing that they have more opportunities to invest in education. In some of the communities where this project was being implemented, girls had never gone into tertiary education. So you start seeing that maybe there's a first girl who passes the exams because there's more time for her to do her studies, etc. Then she gets to the next level. When one girl does it, the next year you have 3 or 4 others because they literally are copying their leader, so their torchbearer. So by doing this, you start seeing that there's more solidarity within these communities. There's greater expectation that if one breaks the glass ceiling, then everyone else starts following suit. So there are many, many ripple effects around these, what you might call small investments. They have actually large impacts, right? We're seeing those effects. Very exciting.
Thank you so much. That's wonderful. A technical question: if this project is a UNFCCC, that's the United Nations Framework on the Convention of Climate Change, certified or friendly project, are certificates traded in this new market?
So this project is not a UNFCC certified. It's for you to be for us to venture into that, it has to be large scale to be worthwhile. It has to be large scale. You have to have at least, I think, 5 million is what I'm seeing, investment for you to go into that and engage in carbon credit or carbon sequestration programming. So this is a pilot. However, the stoves are Vera certified. So it is certified based in the UNFCC requirements. It has undergone several iterations and certifications from the Vera is one of the bodies certifying this kind of climate friendly resources. Yes, but that's one of our aims in the future for us to go into that, to really engage in the carbon trade market. And we would like to invite colleagues who are listening here. If there's interest, please reach out to us. We would like to have a conversation with you and see how we can work in this new space. Climate resilience, carbon programming is an area that we are very interested in. We are going into that, and we really want to work with other INGOs in this space. And another one is also in terms of the innovative financing mechanism. We would like also to explore how we could work together as a sector in that space.
Thank you. And just in our last minute here, I wanted to ask, are there any stories that stay with you from participants of the program? It sounds like such a transformative project. Is there something that stays with you? Maybe I'll throw it to Stan.
I think the project, when people don't feel seen and when they feel that someone has invested in them, that's an aha moment for me, because many of these women have been disregarded in these communities, right? So that was quite impactful because all of a sudden they felt valued, they felt like equals, and also felt important. So that was extremely important. Little steps in the right direction, but yes, that's when you realize that we're all humans, right? We're all humans, and we need to treat each other a little bit better so that we can have that parity, gender, socioeconomic variables, all of that. So that stayed with me. Thank you.
One of the quotes that stayed with me is from one of the participants who said that, a simple cook stove have actually helped her to have to feel less exhausted at the end of the day. And I can really relate to that, because if you imagine the lives of women in these states, they wake up like 3 or 4 in the morning. The heat water for them for the use of family to take a bath, they prepare food, etc., etc. And at the same time, after that, they will go to the tea states to work for several hours. Then they come home, they cook, they prepare food and all that, and then they wash the dishes afterwards and all that. And it's really, the burden is really too much for this. And I can really relate that, how exhausted could they be at about nine in the evening. And because of the reduction in the time for them to prepare food and prepare and cook food, that really reduce, the physical burden for them. Like even here in Canada, I sometimes, when my wife would travel and I have to cook food and do everything at home, I feel so exhausted. 7 p.m. So how much more for these women? So it's really, it's quite simple from our perspective, but if you really understand the situation in this community and how women experience and feel every day, when they say that feeling less exhausted at the end of the day, for me, it's very impactful.
And really, thank you, San and Elmer, for sharing about this project and its, tremendous effect on women and girls in Sri Lanka. For sharing the stories and the images of the women there.
Thank you very much for having us. Take
Thank
care.
you. Good day. Bye-bye.
Good day.